Why is he even here? He looks pathetic, sitting all alone. The whisper floated through the glittering ballroom like a shard of broken glass. Ethan Cole lifted his champagne glass, though the bubbles inside had long gone flat. The crystal trembled slightly in his hand as another pair of guests turned their heads, not even bothering to hide their curiosity. Their eyes followed him the way people watch a headline rather than a human being. The chandeliers above cast warm golden light over the wedding hall, but Ethan felt cold. He sat in the farthest corner of the room, pressed into the ivory-colored walls as if he could disappear into them. His chest tightened. He should never have come to this wedding. Rebecca, his former assistant, had invited him months ago, back when the thought of attending a normal social event still seemed possible. He'd told himself it would be good to show support, to step into a room without business negotiations or flashing cameras. But now, every rustle of silk dresses and every tilt of champagne flutes seemed to circle back to him. Is that really Ethan Cole, the hotel guy, the one worth billions? Someone muttered near the buffet. The words landed like a stone in his stomach. Ethan Cole, a headline, a figure on a magazine cover, a net worth to be gossiped about. Not Ethan the man. Not Ethan who once thought love was possible. He set his glass down, fingers trembling with frustration. 3 relationships had ended the same way. Once the women learned that his fortune outshone his heart, they'd shown their true colors. The last one had hurt most, Cassandra. 8 months of pretending, of whispers of forever, only for her to sell their engagement story to a tabloid before vanishing with one of his business rivals. The headline still haunted him. Billionaire's fiancé exposes his private failures. Tonight, the memory burned hotter under the stares of strangers. He reached for his phone, thumb hovering over his driver's number. He could leave, make an excuse, send Rebecca a gift large enough to ease his absence. Retreat back to his penthouse, where the walls, at least, did not judge him. He stood, ready to slip away unnoticed, when a voice stopped him. "Excuse me," it said, gentle but firm. "You look like you need rescuing." Ethan froze. Slowly, he turned. A woman stood before him. She wasn't dressed to dazzle, not like the jeweled guests shimmering under the chandeliers. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back neatly, a tablet in one hand and a discreet earpiece in the other. Her eyes, warm, brown, steady, met his without a flicker of calculation. "I'm sorry?" Ethan asked, caught off guard. She gave a small, knowing smile. "The vultures are circling," she said softly, tilting her head toward the room where a woman in a red gown had been staring at him for 10 straight minutes. "You look like you'd rather vanish. Lucky for you, I'm good at vanishing people." Her tone was light, but her gaze was kind. "I'm Maya Johnson," she added, "wedding coordinator. And trust me, I've seen this happen before. High-profile guest, everyone trying to corner them. It's exhausting." Ethan felt his defenses rise. Another person who knew who he was. Another person who might want something. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." Her voice dropped lower, for his ears alone. "Look, those people are already taking photos of you. That woman over there, she's been rehearsing her accidental bump for 10 minutes. If you stay here, you'll be swarmed. Or," she leaned in just enough that only he could hear, "you can walk with me. Pretend you're with me. Smile once or twice, and they'll leave you alone." The offer stunned him. 3 years. That's how long it had been since anyone offered to help him without asking for something in return. "Why would you do that?" Ethan asked carefully. Her answer came without hesitation. "Because everyone deserves to feel comfortable at a wedding. And honestly, she shrugged, almost playful. "I could use the company. These nights can get lonely when you're the one working behind the scenes." Ethan searched her face for the telltale signs: greed, hunger, calculation. But there was nothing, just steady warmth. She wasn't looking at him like a trophy. She was looking at him like a person. "You don't even know me," he said quietly. "I know enough," Maya replied. "You're here alone, you're clearly uncomfortable, and you haven't bragged or hit on me in the 30 seconds we've been talking. That puts you ahead of most men I meet at these things." A laugh, small, startled, escaped him before he could stop it. He hadn't laughed in months. "What do I need to do?" he asked. Her smile widened. "Just stay close, look happy, and help me make sure this wedding is perfect for Rebecca. Can you handle that?" Ethan looked around the room one last time. The whispers had grown louder. He saw phones tilted in his direction. His chest tightened with the thought of enduring 4 more hours like this. And then he looked back at Maya, this stranger with steady eyes and a gentle smile, offering him a lifeline. "Yes," he said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. "I can handle that." Maya extended her hand. "Then let's save your evening, mystery man." As Ethan took her hand, something shifted. The stares softened, the phones lowered. For the first time since walking into the wedding, he could breathe. "Thank you," he murmured. "Don't thank me yet," she teased, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "You haven't seen how demanding I can be when I'm running an event." For the first time in years, Ethan smiled. Not the polite mask he wore at board meetings, but something real. Maybe tonight wouldn't be a disaster after all. Maybe one person's kindness could change everything. And as Ethan let Maya lead him toward the reception area, his heart dared to believe in something he hadn't felt in years: hope. But he had no idea this small act, one whispered offer to pretend, would set off a chain of events that would test his heart, reveal old scars, and force him to decide whether he could ever let someone see the real Ethan Cole. Maya's hand was surprisingly steady as she guided Ethan away from the gawking crowd. Her grip wasn't clingy, not performative. It was practical, confident, like she'd done this before, and maybe she had. They wove between tables draped in white linens and tall centerpieces of ivory roses. The hum of conversation dulled the moment guests saw them together. The woman in the red dress finally turned her attention elsewhere. For the first time that evening, Ethan's chest loosened. "First stop," Maya announced, checking her tablet. "The catering station. The chef's on edge, and if he's unhappy, everyone's unhappy." Ethan almost laughed. No one had ever pulled him along like an assistant, and yet somehow it felt right. The kitchen smelled of roasted herbs and butter. Steam hissed as servers rushed to plate appetizers. At the center, a chef in a spotless white coat barked orders, his forehead damp with sweat. "Carlos," Maya said warmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "How are we looking on timing?" 20 minutes until we serve the starters. The entree is on track for the exact moment you requested." "Perfect." Maya touched his arm briefly, a gesture of genuine reassurance. "You're amazing, Carlos. Rebecca will be thrilled." Ethan studied her. No condescension, no fake cheer, just respect. He'd watched countless executives treat staff like pawns, but Maya's tone carried dignity. It was refreshing. As they left the kitchen, she glanced at him. "So, how do you know Rebecca?" Ethan hesitated. The truth, Rebecca had been his executive assistant for 2 years, would unravel the fragile normalcy he was clinging to. He forced his tone casual. "We work together. She's organized." Maya chuckled. "That's an understatement. She sent me 17 versions of the seating chart." Her laughter was warm, unguarded. Ethan felt himself leaning into it. They stopped by the towering cake, 3 tiers frosted in buttercream and dotted with delicate flowers. Maya adjusted a rose at the base, stepping back with a critical eye. She told me her biggest fear was her guests feeling uncomfortable. That's why I noticed you. She'd hate knowing anyone wasn't enjoying themselves. Ethan's throat tightened. Rebecca had always been thoughtful like that, sending handwritten thank you notes, asking about his family even when his answers were vague. She'd been one of the few people in his corporate life who saw him as more than a title. "You care a lot," Ethan said quietly. "It's my job," Maya smiled, "but also it matters. Weddings are supposed to be joy, not pressure." They moved on, adjusting a microphone, checking the dance floor. Every step, Ethan felt the tension draining from his shoulders. He found himself carrying her tablet without being asked, straightening a toppled centerpiece, even helping move a table so elderly guests could sit closer to the aisle. "You're pretty good at this," Maya remarked, surprised. "I'm good with logistics," he said carefully, "problem solving." He bit back the rest, that running one of the world's largest hotel chains had honed those skills to a razor's edge. "Well, consider yourself my new assistant," she teased. "Most guests just complain about the music or ask when dinner's served. You're officially my favorite." The words, though casual, touched something raw inside him. When had anyone last called him a favorite? Not a valuable asset, not a strategic ally, but simply liked. A commotion near the gift table broke the moment. A woman in pearls demanded loudly, "Where is Ethan Cole? I must speak with him." Ethan froze. His name, spoken like a prize to be claimed, sliced through his fragile peace. But before panic could consume him, Maya stepped in. Her voice remained calm but firm. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I need to focus on coordination. If you're looking for someone specific, please check with the bride's family after the ceremony." The woman huffed, clearly displeased, but moved away. Ethan exhaled only when she disappeared into the crowd. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what? Doing my job?" Maya shrugged, glancing at her watch. "Speaking of which, we need to get everyone seated. Ready to pretend to be my devoted date for an hour?" Ethan looked at her, really looked. Her face was earnest, her eyes kind. She wasn't mocking him, she wasn't scheming. She was simply offering him a place to belong, even if only for a moment. "More than ready," he said. They took seats in the middle section, far from the whispers at the edges. Ethan felt the strangest sensation, like he wasn't calculating exit strategies, like he didn't need to keep his security team on alert. Sitting next to Maya, he was just a man at a wedding. The music shifted. The bride appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant in lace and satin. Guests rose, a collective hush sweeping the room. "She looks beautiful," Maya whispered, tears shimmering in her eyes. "She does," Ethan agreed. But his gaze lingered on Maya, her joy pure and unguarded. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel gratitude. Gratitude for a stranger who chose kindness instead of judgment. Gratitude for an afternoon where he could breathe. As vows were exchanged and rings slipped onto trembling fingers, Ethan felt something stir deep inside. A thought both terrifying and exhilarating. Maybe kindness really could change everything. And yet, beneath the warm glow of that ceremony, shadows lingered. Ethan knew secrets don't stay buried forever. He was Ethan Cole, billionaire CEO, and the truth always had a way of clawing its way into the light. The ceremony ended in a swell of applause and soft tears, the bride and groom radiant as they walked down the aisle. Guests spilled into the reception hall, laughter and chatter filling the air like champagne bubbles. Ethan tried to breathe in the joy of the moment, but already the pressure was returning. The stares, the whispers, the camera phones discreetly lifted. Beside him, Maya adjusted her tablet. Cocktail hour, that's when people get bold. Stick close. They moved through the ballroom together, her hand brushing his, as though anchoring him. Servers carried trays of sparkling drinks. A jazz quartet struck the first notes of an upbeat melody. And, like clockwork, the first approach came. A middle-aged man in a too shiny suit stepped directly into their path. "Maya, darling," he said, pretending familiarity. His eyes, however, darted to Ethan. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" Maya's smile was polite but firm. "We're in the middle of something, Mr. Lewis. Please excuse us." She steered Ethan away before the man could protest. Ethan exhaled. "Does this happen to you often?" "All the time," she replied. "Different faces, same entitlement. But I don't mind playing goalie." Something about the way she said it, casual, fearless, made Ethan's chest lighten. Yet the crowd didn't let up. A group of young women giggled as they passed, whispering loudly enough for him to hear. "That has to be him, right? Look at the watch. Look at the way he carries himself. Definitely Ethan Cole." Maya glanced at him quickly, as if to gauge whether the words stung. He kept his face neutral, though inside, a knot twisted tighter. To distract him, Maya pulled him toward the dance floor, where staff were clearing space. "Help me for a second." He crouched with her to move a heavy table. The small, ordinary act sent a ripple of surprise through the servers. Guests who had been watching, the ones who assumed he'd never soil his hands, blinked in confusion. Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. "That's better," Maya said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "You're a natural." "I follow instructions well," Ethan murmured, his lips twitching with the hint of a smile. But peace was short-lived. Near the bar, a woman in a sequined gown waved her hand to get his attention. "Excuse me," she called. "You're Ethan Cole, aren't you? My husband owns shares in one of your hotels. We really must talk about." Maya stepped between them like a practiced shield. "This isn't the time, Mrs. Donnelly, if you'll excuse us." The woman frowned, clearly affronted, but Maya's steady professionalism left no room for argument. Ethan leaned close as they walked away. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Maya said simply. "Tonight isn't about business. It's about Rebecca and you." The words hit him harder than expected. About him, not his empire, not his money, just him. They spent the next half hour weaving through small crises, an unsteady microphone, a spilled drink, a flower arrangement that toppled over. Each time, Ethan helped without hesitation, surprising even himself. He held cables while Maya fixed sound equipment, fetched napkins for servers, and quietly guided a lost elderly guest back to her seat. "You're full of surprises," Maya said when he returned the guest's cane with a gentle smile. "Good surprises, I hope." "The best kind," she answered softly. For the first time in years, Ethan felt useful, not as a billionaire writing checks, but as a man solving problems side by side with someone who respected his effort. But the night wasn't done testing him. Near the gift table, he heard it again. His name, spoken like bait. "Where's Ethan Cole? I need to meet him before he leaves. Do you know what that introduction could mean for me?" The voice belonged to a slick-haired entrepreneur, already pulling out his phone to prepare a photo. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Ethan and widened with hunger. Ethan stiffened. He'd been here before, cornered, exploited, stripped of his humanity until all that remained was the brand, the bank account, the opportunity. The man started forward. But before Ethan could retreat, Maya's voice cut across the room. Calm, crisp, commanding. "Sir, this is a wedding, not a conference. If you have business to discuss, you'll need to schedule it elsewhere. Tonight is not about you." The man froze, embarrassed as nearby guests turned to look. He muttered something under his breath and slunk away. Ethan stood stunned. No one had ever done that for him. People usually encouraged the swarm, eager to ride the wave of his notoriety. But Maya? She had shut it down without hesitation. "You're fearless," he said quietly. "No," she corrected, eyes on her tablet. "I just know what matters. And right now, what matters is making sure Rebecca's wedding feels perfect." Her words echoed inside him long after they moved on.
By the time dinner was served, Ethan was seated with Maya at a table of wedding professionals, a photographer, a florist, a musician. The conversation flowed easily, filled with stories of mishaps and miracles behind the scenes of countless weddings. Ethan found himself laughing, really laughing, at the tale of a dog eating the wedding rings moments before a ceremony. When the musician asked casually, "So, Ethan, what do you do for work?" his heart skipped. He forced his voice steady. Business management, efficiency, logistics, helping companies run smoother. It wasn't untrue, just partial. Maya's curious glance lingered on him, but she said nothing. And that silence, gentle, patient, but perceptive, was somehow more terrifying than any direct question. The dinner service flowed smoothly, conversation bubbling around the table like champagne. Maya checked her watch, mentally running through her to-do list. Ethan noticed the way her shoulders never seemed to relax, even when she smiled. She was always working, always making sure someone else was comfortable. When the band began setting up for the dance portion, a sudden ripple of panic crossed Maya's face. She tapped her earpiece. "What do you mean the florist canceled? Tonight?"
The words drew Ethan's attention immediately. "Yes, I understand you're double booked, but this can't wait. It's the Johnson Industries event tomorrow night. 200 guests." She paused, her tone growing tighter. "You can't just walk away from a contract." Ending the call, she pressed her fingers to her temple. Unbelievable. Ethan leaned in. "Problem?" "Major problem," she admitted, exhaling hard. "I've got a corporate anniversary party tomorrow, and my florist and caterer both bailed. That client will eat me alive if I don't fix this." She laughed, but it was humorless. "Unless I find miracles overnight, I'm finished." Ethan studied her. The exhaustion in her eyes, the weight on her shoulders. He recognized it, the crushing pressure of being responsible for something bigger than yourself. He'd lived with that weight every day. "Let me help," he said quietly. Maya blinked at him. "Help? Unless you know 5-star chefs and florists who take last-minute calls, there's nothing." "I might know a few people." Before she could argue, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through contacts. His fingers moved with quiet certainty. "Darren, Ethan, I need a favor. Yes, tomorrow night. 200 covers. Elegant, understated. You'll do it? Thank you." He ended the call, already dialing another. Maya stared. Was that Darren Quinn, the executive chef at Meridian Hotel? Ethan didn't answer, just gave her a faint smile before the next call connected. "Clara, it's Ethan. I need arrangements. Johnson Industries, Riverside Pavilion. Yes, full setup. I know it's last minute. Can I count on you?" "Perfect." When he hung up, Maya's jaw dropped. "Clara Green? She has a 6-month waiting list. How did you just do that?" Ethan shrugged, as if it were nothing. "I have connections." But inside, his chest thudded. He hadn't meant to reveal that much. His carefully constructed facade of ordinary business manager had cracked wide open in less than 5 minutes. Maya crossed her arms, narrowing her eyes. "You're not who you say you are you?" The directness of her gaze made his throat tighten. For a moment, he considered telling her everything about his company, his wealth, the cage of isolation that came with it. But the words stuck. "Let's just say," he replied cautiously, "I've spent a lot of years building relationships, and I don't like watching people I respect get cornered." Her expression softened, but her curiosity didn't fade. "Respect, huh? We've only known each other for a few hours." "Sometimes," Ethan said, surprising even himself, "that's all it takes to know someone's worth." Silence lingered between them, not awkward, but heavy with unspoken truths. Before either could say more, Margaret, the elderly aunt they helped earlier, approached their table. Her eyes shone with gratitude. "You two make such a lovely pair. The way you look out for each other, well, it's beautiful." Maya smiled gracefully. "Thank you, Margaret. We're just happy to see Rebecca's day going so well."
Ethan said nothing, but inside, something shifted. He wanted it to be true. He wanted, for the first time in years, to believe that someone might look at him and see more than a headline. As Margaret walked away, Maya tilted her head, her voice soft. "You're full of surprises, Ethan, the kind of surprises that don't add up." Ethan forced a smile, but his chest tightened with unease. He had wanted to be invisible tonight. Instead, he'd revealed too much. Still, the way Maya looked at him, curious, yes, but not calculating, kept him anchored. For the first time, the truth felt like something he might be able to share. The next evening, Boston's Riverside Pavilion glowed like a jewel on the harbor. Strings of golden light reflected off the water, casting ripples across the glass walls of the event space. Inside, servers moved quickly, arranging the last of the table settings while a jazz band tuned their instruments.
Maya stood near the entrance, clipboard in hand, scanning the room with sharp eyes. The arrangements were stunning. Towering orchids, crisp linens, flickering candles in crystal holders. Exactly the elegant but approachable atmosphere Johnson Industries had demanded. Ethan stepped through the doors at precisely 7 o'clock. He wore a tailored black suit that fit him like armor, his tie knotted with meticulous precision. Yet his hands felt strangely clammy. He'd faced boardrooms of cutthroat executives, mergers worth billions, entire empires balanced on a signature. But tonight, walking toward Maya, he felt exposed in a way he couldn't explain. She turned at his approach. For a heartbeat, her guarded expression softened. "You clean up well." "You look incredible," he replied honestly. She wore a simple black gown, her hair in soft waves. Elegant, understated, commanding the room without trying. But her smile remained cautious. "Ready to meet Robert Johnson? He's demanding but worth impressing." "I'll follow your lead," Ethan said, though the irony wasn't lost on him. In truth, he was the one Johnson had been trying to court for years. They barely made it 10 feet inside before a distinguished man in his 60s approached, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. "You must be Simone Johnson," he said warmly, shaking Maya's hand. "I can't thank you enough for saving our celebration. I thought we'd be serving pizza after the caterer canceled." "My pleasure, Mr. Johnson," Maya said. "I'd like you to meet my partner for the evening, Ethan Cole." Johnson froze mid-handshake, his eyes narrowing. "I'm sorry, did you say Ethan Cole?" Ethan felt his stomach drop. Johnson studied him with growing interest. "That's an interesting coincidence. We've been trying to schedule a meeting with Ethan Cole, the CEO of Cole Enterprises, for over a year. Our companies would be ideal partners." Maya blinked, confusion flashing across her face. "CEO?" Ethan's blood ran cold. He forced a polite smile. "Common name." But Johnson tilted his head, examining Ethan more closely. "No, I've seen the photos. You look exactly like him. Same jawline, same eyes." Maya's gaze shot to Ethan, sharp as glass. Understanding dawned, swift, brutal. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, and he could see the betrayal forming before a word left her lips. "What is he talking about?" she asked quietly. Before Ethan barreled on, delighted. "This is remarkable. To think the CEO himself is here, at our event. What an honor." "Mr. Johnson," Maya interrupted, her voice tight. "Excuse us for just a moment. I need a word with my partner." Her tone brooked no argument. She turned sharply and strode toward a quiet corner, heels clicking against the polished floor. Ethan followed, his pulse hammering. When they were out of earshot, she faced him. "Ethan Cole," she said flatly. "CEO, worth billions. Did I get that right?" Ethan opened his mouth, but the words tangled in his throat. "All this time," Maya continued, her voice trembling with anger and hurt, "you let me believe you were some regular consultant. You let me worry about paying deposits, about losing clients, while you could fix it with pocket change.
Her eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. "So you lied instead of trusting me. You decided for both of us." The accusation landed like a blow. "Maya," he whispered, stepping closer, "you were the first person in years who saw me as human. I didn't want to lose that." Her jaw tightened. "And now, you've lost something anyway." The celebration swirled on around them, laughter, clinking glasses, the band's soft melody. But in that corner, time seemed to still.
For the first time in his life, Ethan's wealth felt like a liability instead of an asset. "Simone," Johnson called from across the room, waving eagerly, "bring Mr. Cole back. I want to introduce him to the board." Maya turned, her composure snapping back into place like a mask. She smoothed her gown, her professional smile returning. "We have a job to finish," she said coldly. "After tonight, we'll see if there's anything left to discuss." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. He followed her back into the glow of the event, every step heavy with regret. For the next hour, they played their parts. Maya introduced Ethan to executives, while he offered polite comments, careful not to let the personal tension bleed into the professional veneer. But every glance from her carried distance now, every smile tinged with ice. When Robert Johnson raised a glass in toast, praising the extraordinary Simone Johnson and her mysterious partner, Mr. Cole, the room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. And Ethan realized, with a sinking heart, that the very thing he'd tried to protect, the fragile possibility of being seen as a man, not a fortune, had shattered in the blaze of public recognition. Later, as the event wound down, Maya stood near the entrance, arms crossed. Ethan approached slowly, as if nearing a precipice. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Not tonight," she said firmly, her eyes weary. "I need to think." He swallowed hard. "Maya, I'm sorry, truly. I should have trusted you." Her lips trembled, but she shook her head. "This isn't about sorry. It's about whether I can believe anything you've said." She turned away, her silhouette framed against the glow of the harbor lights. And Ethan Cole, a man who had built an empire, felt powerless. The riverside pavilion shimmered with golden light as the last guests drifted out. Laughter still echoed faintly against the glass walls, but for Ethan, the night had already collapsed into silence. Maya gathered her clipboard, her expression unreadable. When he approached, she didn't look up. "I'll walk you to your car," Ethan offered quietly. "That's not necessary," she replied, her tone brisk, professional, the tone of someone who had drawn a line. Ethan hesitated. He wanted to fight for her, to plead, to explain again, but her shoulders were set like stone. So he only nodded. "Good night, Maya." "Good night, Mr. Cole." The formality cut deeper than any accusation. Back in his penthouse, Ethan stood at the wall of glass overlooking Boston's skyline. The city glittered, vibrant and alive. His empire, his kingdom, but it felt more like a cage than ever before. He replayed her words again and again. "You lied instead of trusting me. You decided for both of us." The truth was unbearable because it was right. In the days that followed, he threw himself into work with ruthless efficiency. Meetings, calls, negotiations. It was the one place where control still existed. Yet, even in the middle of board discussions, his mind drifted. He would hear her laugh from that first night, the way she'd said, "Pretend you're with me," the kindness in her eyes when she'd shielded him from strangers. Now, her eyes only held distance. 3 days passed, then 4. By the 5th, he realized no amount of quarterly profits or glowing press could fill the void she'd left. On the 6th morning, Rebecca, his former assistant, the bride whose wedding had started all of this, called. "I don't know what happened between you and Maya," she said gently, "but I saw the way you looked at her and the way she looked at you. Don't waste that." Ethan's throat tightened. She deserves someone who can give her the truth. "Then maybe it's time you learn how." Her words stayed with him long after the call ended. That afternoon, Ethan did something he hadn't done in decades. he called a therapist. The man's name was Dr. Richardson, a specialist in helping high-profile clients navigate personal walls. "I don't even know who I am without the armor," Ethan admitted in their first session. "Then that's where we begin," Dr. Richardson replied. Week after week, Ethan returned. For the first time, he spoke about Cassandra, about betrayal, about the suffocating loneliness of being wanted only for his bank account. He spoke about how every relationship had turned into a transaction, how every laugh had come with a hidden cost. And slowly, he began to see the pattern. His lies weren't just to others, they were to himself. He had convinced himself that vulnerability was weakness, that deception was safer than trust. But safe had also left him alone. At the same time, Ethan sought out something else: perspective. He began volunteering at Boston Children's Hospital, the same charity gala where Maya had seen him at his most exposed. At first, the staff eyed him with the same polite distance people always gave billionaires, but Ethan kept showing up, reading to kids, playing board games, funding supplies quietly, without headlines or photo ops. One Tuesday afternoon, he read Charlotte's Web to a circle of children, his voice softening as they laughed at Wilbur's antics. When the session ended, an elderly volunteer approached. "Mr. Cole, isn't it?" she asked with a twinkle in her eye. Ethan turned and froze. It was Margaret, the aunt they had helped at Rebecca's wedding. "Well, what a surprise," she said warmly. "I volunteer here every week. And you?" "I started a few months ago," Ethan admitted. "It helps me remember what matters." Margaret studied him. "And how are things with that lovely young woman? Maya, wasn't it?" Ethan's chest tightened. "We're not together." Her smile faded. "That's a shame. You two seemed right for each other." "She was right for me," Ethan said softly. "I just wasn't ready to be right for her." Margaret tilted her head, her voice gentle but firm. "Wasn't ready or aren't ready?" The distinction hit him like a revelation. For 3 months, he had thought of Maya in the past tense, as a lesson, as a loss, but maybe, just maybe, he wasn't too late. That evening, standing once more at his penthouse window, Ethan made a decision. He could spend the rest of his life safe, sealed inside his empire of glass and steel, or he could risk everything for the one thing money couldn't buy: truth. And for the first time in years, he felt not fear, but hope. 3 months after the Johnson Industries event, Ethan Cole stood outside a modest brick apartment building, his heart pounding harder than it had during any boardroom battle. He had rehearsed what to say countless times. He'd practiced with Dr. Richardson, drafted speeches in his head, even deleted a dozen unsent messages. But now, standing on the sidewalk, all his carefully prepared words felt like dust. The door opened. Maya stepped out, locking her apartment behind her. She wore a simple green dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked beautiful but tired, the kind of tired that came from carrying too much alone. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Ethan?" He swallowed. "I needed to see you." "Why?" Her voice wasn't harsh, but wary. "We said everything already." "Not everything." His throat tightened. "Not the truth. Not the whole of it." She hesitated, then sighed. "This isn't the place." "Then come with me. Just for an hour. Please." Something in her voice, raw, unpolished, made her pause. After a long moment, she nodded. They walked together to a small community garden a few blocks away, a place Ethan had discovered while volunteering at the hospital nearby. Lanterns hung between trees, casting warm pools of light over the benches and flowers. The scent of jasmine lingered in the evening air. "This is unexpected," Maya murmured as they sat down. "I wanted you to see where I've been spending my time," Ethan said. He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo, him surrounded by children at the hospital, holding up a picture book. Maya studied it silently. "How long?" 3 months, every week, and therapy too. I've been trying to figure out who I am without the armor, without the lies. He met her gaze, steady this time.
Because you were right. I wasn't protecting myself from gold diggers. I was protecting myself from being vulnerable. And in the process, I shut everyone out, including you." Her eyes softened, though her guard remained. "People don't change overnight, Ethan." "I know." His voice was quiet but firm. "That's why I'm not asking you to believe words. I'm asking for the chance to prove it, slowly, honestly. No more pretending." For a long moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the city beyond the garden walls. Then Maya whispered, "I missed you." Ethan's breath caught. "I tried to tell myself I didn't," she continued, her voice trembling, "that I made the right choice walking away. But I missed the way you noticed things no one else did, the way you listened, the way you made me laugh in the middle of chaos." Ethan reached for her hand, hesitating just before touching it. "Maya, I love you. Not the idea of you. You, your strength, your kindness, the way you see people when no one else does. You make me want to be a better man." Her eyes shone with unshed tears. "If we do this, Ethan, if we try again, it has to be different. Complete honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. As slow as you need," he promised, "one honest conversation at a time." She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face. Then, finally, she placed her hand in his. The warmth of her touch was more than he deserved, but everything he had hoped for. They stood, still holding hands. Ethan glanced at the lantern strung above the garden. Music drifted faintly from a nearby cafe. "Dance with me," he said suddenly. "Here, there's no music. There's music everywhere if you listen for it." He extended his hand, waiting. Maya laughed softly, shaking her head, but she stepped into his arms. And there, under the gentle glow of the lanterns, they swayed. No audience, no performance, no pretense. Just two people daring to be real. For Ethan, it felt like coming home after years of wandering. When he whispered, "I love you," it wasn't a grand declaration, but a truth spoken quietly, without calculation. "I love you too," Maya replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I tried not to, but I couldn't stop." Their kiss was not desperate, not rushed. It was steady, certain, a promise. Later, as they walked back toward her apartment, their fingers intertwined, Ethan felt something he hadn't known in years. Peace. Not the fragile peace of avoidance, but the solid peace of truth. "So," Maya said, glancing at him with a teasing smile, "what happens now?" "Now," Ethan replied, "we figure it out, together, one day, one conversation at a time." She squeezed his hand, and they continued down the quiet street, their shadows stretching side by side under the streetlights. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was something better, the beginning of a real love story, built not on wealth or pretense, but on trust and the courage to be vulnerable.
And for Ethan Cole, billionaire CEO who had once sat alone in the corner of a wedding, that was worth more than all the money in the world. The last image lingers, a man and a woman swaying in a lantern-lit garden. No cameras, no headlines, just honesty. Because true wealth isn't measured in billions. It's measured in the moments you choose to be real, and in the people who see you, not for what you have, but for who you are. In the end, Ethan's journey reminds us of a timeless truth. Wealth, titles, and appearances may open doors, but they cannot unlock the human heart. What truly matters is honesty, trust, and the courage to show our real selves, even when it feels frightening. Too often we hide behind walls of pride, silence, or fear of judgment, and in doing so, we deny ourselves the very connections that give life meaning. It is not easy to be vulnerable, especially after betrayal or disappointment. But as the old saying goes, a closed mouth gathers no foot, but it also gathers no friends. Real love, real respect, and real dignity can only grow when we choose truth over pretense. For many of us, especially in later seasons of life, it's tempting to believe our best chances are behind us. But Ethan's story shows that it is never too late to step out of the shadows, face our own patterns, and risk being seen. Whether in friendships, family ties, or love itself, the value of a person is not in what they own, but in who they are, and in how they make others feel. Justice and dignity are not abstract ideals. They are lived every day when we treat each other with kindness and integrity. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What part of this story spoke to you most? Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between staying guarded and opening up to truth? Share your thoughts in the comments. I promise, your voice matters here. If this story touched you, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next moving and thought-provoking tale. Until then, may you carry with you peace after the storm and a quiet hope that the best chapters of life are still ahead.